So good afternoon, everyone. While we're waiting participants to come in, I suggest we introduce ourselves. My name is Kristina Dely on behalf of GREET CE project, and Stefan is my colleague from Leopolmuria, representing the GREET Geo project.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. And our speakers, I will introduce you right now and a little bit later more in detail. I see Manuel Nina from GoParity, Verena Riedler from Klimja, and we have also Benoit Collas from Enerfip. But you will have a second introduction. Okay, so yeah, while our colleagues come in after their coffee, this webinar is entitled Impact Investment, Renewable Energy Crowdlending in Central Europe and Portugal. So as I mentioned, it's in the framework of two I3 Horizon projects, Interregional Innovation and Investments, the GREET CE project, which is the Green Transition in Central Europe. It's a project running from November 2023, and it will be actually running until February 2026. So it's focusing on capacity building of regional innovation ecosystem. So we are mainly supporting SMEs, innovative SMEs in our region, in Central and Eastern Europe. And we are 8 organizations from 6 countries, myself representing Delphi on behalf of the GREET CE project. So yeah, our participants are entering. So Stefan, I trust you are letting them in. Great. But you don't miss anything. So within this project, within GREET CE, we have made a quick survey on what kind of assistance these innovative SMEs need to develop further their innovation value chains. And beyond many others, we found that receiving crowdfunding is one of their key interests. You see that 70% of the respondents were interested or very interested in this topic of today. So when inviting the 3 major crowdfunding platforms in Europe, this is what motivated us to assist these innovative SMEs. So not taking your word and not repeating you, but some very basics for dummies about crowdfunding. So it's very basic to raise money online from individual investors through the crowdfunding service providers. We have the 3 largest and 3 most well-known of them in our webinar here. So you will tell much more about this. Just for you to know that more than 1 million people have invested via crowdfunding in the EU, according to a 2024 study. And beyond accessing to capital, which may not be funded by banks or typical traditional sources, you get extra publicity, extra marketing, extra community engagement via social media, or you can involve your local communities. It offers you partnership, networking of opportunities, and it's a great tool to build your local audience. Or when we talk about crowdfunding, the most popular is, of course, crowdlending, and this is what we will discuss in this webinar today. Our platforms mostly are engaged in this. So as you can see, the largest number of projects here are loan-based or equity-based. Actually, loan-based 65% of the totals, according to a 2024 study by ESMEA. And debt, so altogether they account for some 82%. Equity based, when you get typically a share in the startups with high growth potential. It can be also reward based, donation based, for example, supporting some causes, or it can be, there is also a very interesting form, invoice discounting or invoice trading. We will discuss this in our next webinar on the 22nd of October. I will tell you more about this at the very end. So, yeah, we talk about impact investments today. What are these impact investments? These are investments made with the intention to generate a positive, measurable social or environmental impact alongside the financial return, when this is at least as important. In 2023, according to this 2024 study, over 1 billion euro of impact investments were made through crowdfunding. So this is and it's gaining momentum. Typically, but you will tell more about the projects yourself. Very typical small and medium-sized solar PVs or smaller sustainable energy projects are very suited for this. There is a European regulation, the European Crowdfunding Service Providers Regulation, which is covering this market. And these digital platforms acting as financial intermediaries, they ensure proper risk management, reliability. So it's a very regulated market as well, what we are talking about. And you see in this chart, it's very interesting, very curiously, the repartition of the providers. France accounts for the largest amount of crowdfunding service providers. And we have the largest one, of course, here today with us, Enerfip, GoParity and Klimja. They mostly focus on crowdlending, as we discussed. So it's just for curiosity from the same study. You see on this chart again the number of providers. You see France, Netherlands, Lithuania, and so forth. Leading the way. But very interestingly, if you see Lithuania or Estonia, for example, they account for, curiously, the largest, the highest number of projects or the highest number of investors in local providers. So yeah, it's just for curiosity. I mentioned to you our upcoming webinar on the 22nd of October. You see here, we will welcome some quite interesting invoice trading platforms. You can register already here. I will send you, of course, the link and everything in the chat and via emails, but you can also follow us online. And we will have more to come in November. So thanks for following us. And now, hopefully, most of our participants have arrived in the meantime. So let me introduce our dear speakers today, and thanks very much again for accepting our invitation. So we have with us today Benoît Collas, who is International Business Developer for Enerfip, France. And just for curiosity, I put here to you and I hope I put correct figures, but correct me if I'm not wrong, if I'm wrong. Just the invested figures by the three platforms, so over 700 millions were invested. Manuel Ninha from GoParity, it's a Portuguese platform, but again, working also Europe-wide and beyond. And Verena Riedler from Klimja, Austria. Manuel was also a founder of GoParity, and Verena is also the business leader and chief impact maker for Klimja, right? So if you allow me, I give you the floor in this order. So Benoît, you have the floor. I
Hello,
stop sharing.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot, Kristina, to invite Enerfip today. So I will change the page I present and take the good one. Mm. Okay, I think it's better. And sorry for this. So if I understand properly, most of you are my counterpart or startups looking for financing, correct?
Yes, we have our, sorry, just we will probably provide you with the list of participants if you allow, yes. And we have on both sides, we have innovative SMEs as part of GREET CE. But I think as private persons, we are also looking into investments as well. So it probably on both sides we are interested in this webinar. I just forgot to say, if you have, we will gather questions and we will have a Q&A session at the end. But in the meantime, if you have a quick prompt questions, please feel free to use the chat. We are looking into that, and if there is a prompt question at the end of your presentations, we'll read it out loud. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Kristina. So just for your information, my name is Ben. I've been working with Enerfip for 3 years now. I take care of everything related to Europe. Previously, I was working as a financing manager in a solar and wind company in France. So Enerfip is a European company, let's say, that we have been created in France, Montpellier, south of France, 10 years ago. And today we are happy to say that we shift to Europe 3 years ago when the regulation you mentioned before turned from local standard to international standard, to at least European. And we shift to Europe. We created an office in Madrid, Spain. We created, who is responsible for Spain and Portugal. We created an office in Roma for Italy, and we created an office in Amsterdam for Netherlands. So this is our implementation today. So our idea is to build a free carbon society. So that's why we have always been working in that direction. And we think that reducing a footprint of the investment is one of the best way. One of the key stuff with crowdfunding is transparency. Let's say as soon as I go to some other industry, I will see that we have many secrets and so on. And this is something that I'm quite happy to share with you, transparency. When you are a company looking for some funds with crowdfunding, you need to give Enerfip everything, otherwise we won't be able to convince your next investors. So this is something key for us. And the third pillar will be, I give you some money, but I would like to have some nice return. So today we can say that we can give back between 5 to 9% a year for your saving. This is with all the flags, what I mentioned at the beginning. So today, let's say that at the beginning, we were partially owned by main banks in France. And today, the directors bought back the shares. So let's say that we are independent today. In Enerfip today, we finance 500 projects. We are very happy to have raised almost 1 billion euro, which is our target for one day. We have a nice team of investors of around 60,000 people on board, mainly retail investors. So inside it will be very few of institutionals. And we have a team of 50 employees, which are mainly French for this historical reason, but also a little bit in Spain, where we have a team, for example, of six people already. So let's say that at Enerfip, we have the basic 10 years activity of crowdfunding. In parallel, we run fund management that we created 2-3 years ago. The idea crowdfunding will be short term, less than 5 years, and bonds, while the fund management will be more than 5 years and a little bit more with equity. So as I said, we only active with energy transition, and we wanted to support when it was needed for developers. So I will show you after if we finance more solar or startup or whatever. But let's say that we see that something was missing with the proposal of today in terms of everything related to development phases. This is something that uh, classic banks, they are reluctant to give you some money if you do some development projects. Same for everything which is a little bit new, like mobility. So that's why we said these are the kind of area where we can support and we will give you much more support. So this is the kind of key figures that you will find. The 5 million, it's an obligation, European obligation for crowdfunding. We can't go more to 5 million. And also the minimum is something more internal. So let's say that you can do fundraise at 100K if you want. It's just that you will spend much more time to do it. I mean, almost the same time that if you do a huge fundraise. So for us, we act between 500K to 5 million. So let's say that where banks are lacking of innovation, maybe it's everything related to new projects. Banks they really like to invest their money with no risk. So at Enerfip, a good part of the team is coming from like myself, from a solar professional. So it means that we know how to assess if a project is better than another, and we have the skill to say yes or no to a project. So that's why we can go to that kind of project. Of course, we will create an atmosphere which is safe for investors and project owners. We have something which has been a great success in France that we call the acceptability. I will succeed. This is in order to mix um, return for investor, but also knowledge of your projects locally. So every time we do this kind of project, it's more something very local. For example, a small department. And the developer will need to do marketing and say, he's not sure with the project, so let's try to see how people react locally. And we will finance a small part of the development only and see how local people react. Everything related to development phase, for us, it's quite risky. And our approach in order to mitigate this risk is to put several projects together in order we know that at the end some project will succeed, some other won't succeed, but on average everything will turn fine. So this is what we do. So I won't take a development project for one project, but if I have 5 to 10 with different risk, for example, this one is a big project, this one is in this area, this one is already quite advanced and so on. So as soon as it's mixed, we will go for it. Another kind of financing project, it's a bridge for financing. Let's say that in 2026, you will finance with a classic bank one of your projects. You need to purchase everything right now and to sign your document. So this is something that you can support to say we will let you do the purchase, and then you will finance back with the classic bank later on. And something more huge, corporate financing, are more at global level of the company. Today, let's say that in terms of technology, most of our project has been done with solar and wind, a little bit of efficiency also. So what is easy for us to show to investors is to show a project where they can invest in assets, because they see that there is something strong, and also for us it's good to take some securities on the top of it. So that's why classic infrastructure is much more demand from investor than a corporate. Let's say for corporate it's more tricky. So if we want to convince investors to come, it's better to show, look, you have this nice, I don't know, 5 MW project in this region. You can even go to the field and see it. So that's why for us it has been all infrastructure project has been much better. And today we need to speak about loans and bonds. So this is what we did. Most of our operation have been done with bonds. So bonds, it's simple. You will get during 4 years the same amount every year, which is not the case with equity, more certainty and so on. And for us, we wanted to democratize crowdfunding. So that's why we wanted an easy way to educate people and to say, go, it's straight, it will be like this, and let's continue. We are very lucky to have this in the industry. We always try to, same, again, I repeat about my transparency term that I mentioned at the beginning. We always fond of transparency. You will see on all platforms we publish our indicators. So it will be the amount that we raise, it will be the number of defaults, the kind of energy, and much more, the delay of payment and so on. So everyone will show his default rates. And in Enerfip, we are very lucky to have a very, very low default rate. So how is it measured? It's the percentage of issues, problem, non-payments compared to the total of amount that we raised. It's not the total amount from scratch, but if I remember properly the calculation, it's on the last 3 years, or I mean, it's a little bit more tricky, but at least it's good. We did also some project abroad. As said, we have a nice space in Spain, and they raised more than 50 million. We did also some projects in Romania, Poland, and Hungary, and we will go back to them after, and some projects in Italy. So today I try to find some precise example, in 3 countries that we did some financing. First one is Hungary. So this one was on the top of a French vehicle. Let's say that the Hungarian company had a link with a French company. So we did a fundraising in France in order to transfer it to the Hungarian developer. The idea is sometimes we have some difficulties. We wanted to, every time we try to be close to the fundraise. So I would have loved to do it directly in Hungary. But when we studied the local law and the link with crowdfunding, it was almost impossible. And our lawyer said, unfortunately, I'm not sure to be able to support you well. It was, let's say, almost an old project. It was 2 to 3 years ago. So that's why we say better go through France, and then this this client will send it to his sister company in Hungary. So it was for a corporate project for a development of the company. So several, if I remember properly, it was to send money to Hungary, of course, but also Romania. It was to buy some assets, and it was to finance wind and solar new projects. The maturity was 3 years, and we had the support of more than 1,000 investors. Every time, I guess you will receive the presentation, you have the link to the campaign, so you will find everything related to description, but also some like legal documents. For this one, on the top you have the flag, so it's small, of Spain. So this project was in Portugal. Again, it was for development of some new project in the country, and we did it thanks to a branch in Spain. So they structure everything and send it to a Spanish vehicle and then to Portugal. And then the last one I chose for today was for biomethane new structure, a sponsor called ID Energy. This one was asset, of course, with this nice picture. You can imagine that it was an asset infrastructure financing. And it has been sent, again, it's super tricky, through Spain because the mother company was Spanish, but it was sent to Poland because the power plant was in Poland. So this is the free investment abroad that were possible thanks to Enerfip crowdfunding. Here I try to show you 3 phases when we do a financing together. As a developer, it will be organized like this. The first one is the preparation. So let's say that you will tell me, Ben, I would like to finance my project. It's 1 million euro in, I don't know, Finland. And we will have a negotiation together. Then we'll have the fundraising phase, which will be all the online parts. So it means that your web page will be available and all investors will be able to invest. And then we have the repayment period where you will give the interest and the principal. Always some companies that we work or we have been working with, they are, of course, most of them will be unknown because most of them are the French one, but some of them are international. The part related to investors will be maybe a repetition. I will try to, what is very important for us, we trust bringing investment in green energy is good for everyone. So that's why we decided to make it possible from 10 euros only. We work with internet. We have almost no cost if I do a financing with 10 investors or 1,000 investors. So for us, it's good to educate people to start with few and maybe hopefully for you, it will be more later. We don't ask remuneration for investors. And in the middle between investors and Enerfip, we have a kind of, we call a payment provider. He will act as an intermediary to do the transfer. We have a team of 7 persons speaking English, French, Spanish, Italian, Dutch, and German. So they are here to support and to answer your question, even if we try to make everything possible and available in the website. Our objective is to earn some money, but it's also to have an impact. So that's why as soon as you do an investment, we also count for the CO2 reduction that you have been participate. So this is a communication that we do. I don't know, maybe in 10 years time, it will be compulsory to show everything you saved with your investment. Let's bet for it, but I'm not sure. So this is something that we created. And we have a second market. Second market is when you invest in a bond, it's for like a precise duration, for instance, 3 years. But if after 1 year you want to change, I don't know, you want to buy a house or whatever, so you need to have back your money. You have a secondary market where you can put your investment and see if someone is looking to buy it for you. Here we are. Kristina, your turn. I don't know if I've been short enough or everything was clear.
You were just perfect, Benoit. Thank you very much. Just on time. Perfect. In the meantime, I believe while I'm giving the floor, because I'm just checking the chat, I have no questions yet on the chat, but for the newcomers, I would once again stress that if you have any questions on the spot, you can directly put in the chat, but after our three speakers will open the floor, so you can also put your questions afterwards. Yeah, while giving the floor, maybe then we move on to Manuel. I would thank you very much again, Benoit. So I would tell that we are in these two projects mostly interested. You were asking me the question, but probably the project developer side is more interesting than the investor side. Of course, as private persons, we are all investors, but here we are together with innovative SMEs throughout Central and Eastern Europe. So potentially their financing is at stake right now. So thank you very much, Manuel. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Kristina, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. So a bit following on what Benoit from Enerfip was mentioning, we are managed by the same European license. And GoParity is a younger company. We were set up in 2017. Mostly focused on access to finance and promoters who have trouble finding funding for their projects in traditional banking, namely SMEs or startups. And so in one way, well, Benoit has showed you a bit, but to recap, that the way currently banks operate, and I'm trying to see if my presentation works. Oh, there we go. Sorry, there was some delay. So we can all ask ourselves, it's a basic question, where does the money from banks come? And of course, the money comes from their deposits. People like you and me who are putting the deposits on the bank. And then it's banks who decide who they lend money to and what interest they recover from those operations. Now, the principle of any crowd lending platform, such as GoParity or Enerfip, etc., is to mediate or peer-to-peer loans between private investors or companies and projects, which then they pay back that money with a specific interest on that loan, depending on the maturity, of course. And specifically, we make money by managing and setting up these operations as a platform. Now, what differentiates loans from GoParity from many other platforms in Europe is the need to generate impact, which is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So here, not only, of course, one of the main cores would be energy, clean energy, efficiency, but we also aim for other areas. And so in that hand, we are operating at European level with offices in Portugal and Spain and clients all over the world. But I was mentioning not only the basis of our projects are businesses focused on sustainable energy, whether production or efficiency, but we are supporting also projects focused on circular economy, blue economy, but also the social economy and a bit of green use of land, including, of course, biologic agriculture, sustainable farming practices, regenerative farming, etc. Some numbers you mentioned before. GoParity has now reached above 54 million euros lent, but we operate on a smaller scale. Let's say our biggest campaign has been 1.2 million, but we operate under the 500,000 scale, let's say, usually being our smallest 6,000 euros. We have over 20,000 active investors in the platform, mostly from Portugal and Spain, but we have actually investors from 65 countries in the world. And the kind of products that we offer in terms of financing, they are very much tailor-made to the needs of our promoters. We have a lot of advancement on payments for grants, whether national or European. We have working capital facilities. We finance equipment, and this would include solar panels and batteries for self-consumption, for example. We have overall project financing and also crowd bonds. In the end, the objective to finance or capitalize usually larger companies that are a bit more mature. And maturity, so let's say the duration of these loans can go from 3 months to 10 years. The steps, they are very similar. We've discussed this before, and Benoit has presented their process, which is similar to us. We have a risk and impact assessment, and then there is the usual banking regulations for QIB, anti-money laundering, registrations, all that. But then we focus more on the campaign preparation, which is very much supported on social media, and tries to use as much as possible our promoters' networks if they have them. Otherwise, our own networks are pretty happy to fund all your operations, and then we have the launch and the funding. These, I won't go over them. This is just the documents that we ask. The presentation will be shared, so partners have, participants can look at them and see what do they need if they want to apply for a loan at GoParity. But basically it's, description of the project, what are the assets, etc., and then the usual legal documents. But as I mentioned, one of our biggest focus is trying to bring the projects towards the media attention, not only social media, but traditional media as well. And so we have several success cases at national and, let's say, European level as well for different projects that have been interesting for the media actors. And we support here with our communication team. So specifically, why us and why crowdlending in general? We have a specific clause of no penalties for early amortization. So we might not be the cheapest money on the market, but we are most certainly the most flexible and the fastest. We provide tailor-made products, financial products, according to the client's needs. Agility, I've mentioned. Traditional banking cannot compete with our kind of procedures. And the idea that we can manage these investor communities, that they can be also contacted and they become part of the promoter's stakeholder group, let's say. And money is at the end sourced sustainably from individual investors who believe in your projects. Very quickly, some projects that we funded. from rebuilding or building a school in Portugal, in Lisbon, or funding renewable energy around Portugal and Spain, a large factory or a large operation of aquaculture that is sustainable off the coast of Portugal, or soft mobility companies that produce, for example, electric bicycles. We have over 250 clients. All of them are public, they are on our website. And so you can also have a bit this idea of transparency and of accountability for all the projects that have been funded by the platform. Some examples, as I've mentioned, where we are around and where we have projects funded. We have a strong connection also to South America, where there is a lot of investment in solar energy. And the impact that we have tried and have kept measuring, both in jobs, clean energy, people impacted, CO2, and sustainable water and land masses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Again, a very highly interesting presentation. Yeah, and thanks for presenting the impact. It's also very important because we are talking about impact financing, not only financial, but several other impacts, sustainability, and else. I keep my questions. I have a lot as well, just as Benoit, but let's listen to our last presenter. And while Verena is putting her presentation, I wanted to call your attention to the chat, because I put our next webinar in the chat. You can already register there. And yeah, and feel free to question. Thank you. Verena, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to share this afternoon with you. And I would like to start with why we do what we do. And the main reason is that, in fact, we are destroying our own livelihoods, and our money has a lot to do with this. As you said, everybody is an investor too, no matter whether you put your money in a bank account or whether you buy stocks. We all need to take responsibility for our money. And our vision with Klimja is a good life for all on a healthy planet, and a financial and economic system that contributes to it. We're a verified social enterprise. This means we do not work for our own profit, but we work for the impact that we want to make with our company. This is also written down in all our contracts, so we could not even get some money out of the company, even if we wanted. We're the leading crowd investing platform for climate protection projects in Austria and Germany. So we do not operate in the European regime yet. We're really focused on Austria and Germany by now. And we're also an intermediary of subordinated loans. And most of all, we want to become a game changer on the financial market. This means we want to finance change by crowd investing into all kinds of energy transition projects, for example. And we also want to change finance. This is where this social enterprise comes in. We really want to mainstream impact investment. So we want to make everybody look at their investments through a certain type of glasses, if you would like to put it like this. And to really raise the awareness that every investment has a financial return, a social return, and an ecological return. And we believe if everybody is really aware of that, more people would go also to their traditional banks, for example, and ask the bank accountant, what do you really do with the money I have on this account? What happens with it? What impact does it make? And there is little transparency now, and we want to raise the transparency by empowering people to ask the right questions too. Yes. But I also brought some case studies. This is our core business, of course, and the other measures are to inspire people to think and to talk more about money and the impact of money in the world. But as you specifically asked for case studies, we have had a very popular project that was solar power for an intergenerational building in Germany, where we fundraised 400,000 euros during one weekend last year. This was the shortest project on our platform that we ever had, of course, and we cannot reproduce that, but it was really interesting because it was so popular. We have projects like a bioenergy park near Munich. This was some years ago. We are talking to the owners again now for follow-up projects. At this time, our crowd was way smaller than today. So there we could contribute 62,000 euros, which is really small by now. Typically, our projects start with 250,000 euros now, and they go up to 2 million, because in Austria, the regulation says that 2 million is the limit that we can do with crowdfunding. We cannot go beyond that. And I think the biggest project so far was 1.2 million. We are also quite active in other countries, especially in African countries. About 50% of our projects are in the so-called Global South, like here, Abyssinia Awasi. This was photovoltaic for a steel producer, the market leader in Kenya. And we also have different projects all around Europe, like the last one in Slovenia. This was an agri PV. And I really got the feedback that people liked the fact that they could go there, you know, from Austria, if you want to go to the sea. Typically you go by Slovenia, and they could really go and visit their project and see what has been built already and see the impact of their money firsthand. And I think this is very attractive for many people too, in terms of transparency and having something real by comparison to all these virtual investments like Bitcoins that you cannot touch. Yeah, and I also wanted to share some perspectives on investment readiness for all the participants that might be thinking about taking alternative capital by crowd loans. I think it's always very important to look at the overarching goal. Is the goal to make fast profit? Is the goal long-term social impact? Because this changes a lot in the way you set up the projects and also the contracts for that. And it might also change who are the preferred partners to go with. Also, a very important question is always which degree of uncertainty is the investor ready to take? And as I explained before, we want to mainstream impact investment. This means for a crowdfunding platform, we have very high standards concerning low risk. We want to have a probability of repayment of at least 95%. And this means we usually do not select real startups for our platform, but rather scale-ups that already have a proof of market and have steady income streams and can really demonstrate that they will be able to repay these loans. Of course, the financial return is lower than with venture capital, for example. But for us, this is the sweet spot that our community is looking for, because if you get somebody to do an impact investment for the first time, who has only had bank accounts so far, for example, and they have a loss on their very first project, or one of two, this would not help in mainstreaming these thoughts. This is why we really want more mature ventures to work with. Yes, and we also invest lots of time and energy into mitigating the inherent risks. So we also take a very close look, like the other platforms that talked to you before me, in the equity in the company, existing revenue streams. Can there be guarantees for the loans? So there are always circumstances that are given, but in my opinion, by structuring a project in the way that is favorable for the investors, we can do a lot to really de-risk this subordinated loan for them. Okay, and to demonstrate these kinds of investment readiness I was talking about, this one is rather for the African market, but you can see that there are so many stages in venture building, from inception through incorporation, product prototypes, pre-revenue, post-revenue, then the first attempt to really test the product market fit, and then finally scaling. And I would say that Klimja is really situated on the very far right of this table. So when all these venture building efforts have been made and there is already a first success that can be scaled to new regions, for example, or a second production, then we are the right partner to go with. What are our requirements if we work together on a project? Of course, impact first, as I said. So the first screening is always to check whether the project really improves climate and environmental protection, for example, by promoting energy and resource efficiency, by more economical use of limited or valuable resources, and first of all, usually renewable energy solutions and technologies. This is where we come from. So our platform exists for about 10 years now, and it all started with energy projects, but we don't limit ourselves to it. So there will be more circular economy projects now. There have been energy loss prevention projects in the past. So we're open to other things too. Then, of course, we consider improvement of social criteria. The SDGs are always in focus, and also social responsibility in the community has to be documented and proven and monitored. And as I mentioned before, the proven and tested business model. Yeah. What are the success factors from my experience for long-term impact investment? I think it's really important to have shared values. And this is also why I started with our why. We do this to really contribute to a good life for all on a healthy planet. And I would find it very hard to work with somebody who says, okay, I'm doing energy transition projects just before the profit, because of the profit. So we have to have this impact orientation as something that really connects us and ties us together. A very important success factor is also transparency and trust. We have 2 reports per year for our investors, and we know that many of them really read them from the first page to the 4th or 5th, depending on the length. And this is really very highly appreciated, that the projects share not only their successes and the milestones, but also what were the hurdles they had to overcome, or what are they struggling with in the moment, and what are they planning to do to overcome this. So it's really a personal interest for many of the investors to get to know the projects better and to understand the hard work they are often doing. So communication and flexibility is also very important in the partnerships. And we can really have very much flexibility in the beginning, when we set up the contracts and when we build the whole framework for a project. With subordinated loans, once the contracts are issued, the flexibility decreases because you have a fixed term and you have to stick to this contract. It's not like going to the bank and saying, okay, we have some problems here. Can we repay some months later? This is not something that is easy to do with these subordinated loan contracts. It's better to build in some buffers beforehand than having to negotiate something afterwards. And one success factor that we also see in our projects is revolving capital. This, of course, depends on the kind of project you're doing, but we have some partners that have taken a certain amount of capital, and during 5 years, they can use this capital 3, 4, or 5 times. So their €1 that has been invested has a huge impact in comparison to another project that can only use this euro once. We have this with mobile solar home systems, for example, that are very fast revolving. And we will also have it with this mobile project we're doing in Ghana at the moment. Okay, so what are my learnings and recommendations in general for the projects that are listening to us? I think it's really very important to work on sales and a self-sustaining business model from day one. Of course, it can help to get a grant or something along the way, but I find it much easier for our community to work with projects that really have invested in stable sales and are more sustainable and standing on their own feet. In cross-border investments, intermediary partners are often required, especially if partners are outside the European Union. You might need an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. This means an own enterprise within the European Union to be able to do this business, because otherwise you would not get a trustee account, depending on your country of origin. We sometimes have these problems with ventures from the global south, and this makes it really hard sometimes to do business together if they do not have a partner in the European Union that can serve as the issuer of the loan. And third recommendation is really stay in touch and be patient, because I think both partners need to be in the right stage for cooperation. And we often talk to projects that have great ideas and great plans, but they are not yet in the right stage for our community. And then we stay in touch for 2 years or maybe even 3, and then the right moment comes and we can finally launch our first campaign together for really scaling their business. Yeah. And I don't know whether the slides will be shared afterwards, Kristina. I have integrated my contact details here. I'm happy to hear from all of you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We will share the slides. And thanks a lot, Verena, for this highly interesting presentation again. And also for sharing the contact. So yeah, I think Benoit and Manuel had the contacts as well, so we will share it. You can also share directly in the chat here. And now you are just perfect. We are on time with all the presentations, so timing is just really perfect. So now we will head on the Q&A, the questions. I don't know. I think, Stefan, can participants pose their questions in oral, or do they have to write on the chat? I think every participant have the right to talk, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Everybody
okay.
has the possibility to talk or put it in the chat, yes.
Yeah, or put it in the chat. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe until you are thinking, I might have the first question, and Benoit thought that he has also a lot of questions. I think, Ben, you mentioned in your presentations about acceptability fundraising. I have the problem with this word as well. So yeah, this caught my attention because you mentioned that in some cases not the complete project but only part of the project can be financed, so that it's also for local to promote local acceptability of the project. Once again.
I will help you. So this is I will help you to explain, not to pronounce.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful question, because in fact 10 years ago.
Sorry, just let me finish with the purpose why I why I was asking, and maybe it's something to do or in connection with the energy communities you mentioned. Because we are doing this webinar together, so Grid CE and Grid Geo, the other project focusing on geothermal. So we are talking about local communities here. We've heard a lot of projects focusing on solar and PVs and wind. Not so, I've also heard of biogas, but maybe some communities could be interested to finance their geothermal as well. But I give back the floor to you and maybe explain further this concept of acceptability fundraising and maybe some examples and how in Central and Eastern Europe we could find actually more visibility to these local sustainable projects. Yeah.
So this question is maybe, the transition with many things with Enerfip and with some other players. Because in France, 10 years ago, we created Enerfip. Okay. And in the meantime, a wonderful law in France said, if you want to build a solar project in France, if you invest with crowdfunding 10% of your investment, myself, government, I will give you a nice subsidy. So imagine we created an Enerfip, and 1 year after, this law came. So for us, it was wonderful. It means that it was almost compulsory to put crowdfunding on the top of each single solar project in the country. And it was called by the government acceptability, that I pronounce better now. So it means that for us, it has been the way during the first year to build a nice market and to present ourselves as a classic bank, even if it's totally different. Everything is on the web and so on. But let's say we were strong enough, thanks for these 5 years of acceptability. And at the beginning, you show figures of the market in Europe, and one of the explanation of why France was so big was this obligation. So in fact, it was not linked at all with energetical communities. Yeah, I guess Manuel or Verena, maybe you could speak better than myself about it. But it was linked with this kind of acceptability, which can be forced by the government. After a while, we saw that it was not forced anymore. After 5 years, it was over, so the rule was over. But it was a kind of creation in the mind of many project owners to say, I don't want money. My first objective is more to make marketing about my project. Okay. So it was what we call acceptability, and we decided to do it very close to the project because they don't want to. If the project in France is quite big, if it's in south of France, we don't want investor from north of France. So we restricted to maybe a village, maybe like the 10 village around, or maybe the department or whatever.
Thank you,
Uh,
Benoit. Yeah,
so
sorry.
maybe Manuel or Verena, if you have more
Yes,
example.
Verena wanted to have a word.
We are also talking to municipalities who want to allow, for example, a wind park on their grounds, and who are afraid of very little acceptance in their population. And they try to offer their population the opportunity to invest into the wind parks so that it is their wind park whenever they look at it. So it's really a form of participation too, financial participation, besides all these other dialogue processes that are necessary to have a project like that really working.
Yeah, thank you, Verena. And you mentioned actually, Benoit, one more thing. It's basically in France, at least in this case, of using crowdfunding and public funding together. So this kind of fund matching could be also very interesting, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, where we have still grant funding dominated, especially in some, for example, in the case of municipalities. Yeah, do you have any further experience on this, or maybe to you, Verena, as well, because you mentioned that you are mostly looking at Austria and Germany, or are you looking beyond this geographical border, also Central and Eastern Europe?
Yes, we are. I mean, our projects are really all over the world. So why would we do projects in Ghana, but not in, I don't know, Belgrade, for example? We're really open to that, but we also have to have a solution or a setup that is conform to the regulations in Austria and Germany in our markets. And on this matching funding that you mentioned, some of our projects also use the crowd loans as a mezzanine capital. So they take, let's say, a third of the capital they need via crowd loans. And as the bank will see this as equity capital, they get better margins from the bank. And so they have this kind of hybrid financing, and they optimize for their best quotas, of course.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking at the participants if there is any questions, so that not only we talk. We have among our participants several energy agencies. We have actually participating SMEs in our 4 pilots. Actually, in Grid C, we are looking into 4 pilots on digital energy, sustainable construction, renewable gases, regenerative farming. So really a broad scale. I've even seen a school having registered from Hungary, looking into some PVs on their roofs. So maybe it's also an opportunity for them to gather some funding. Okay. So,
Kristina, and
yes.
just to answer your second question into the acceptability process, how was it done? I mentioned that it was by state, but in fact, it could be done by whatever, entity of the state. It could be by a department, even by a company. So for us, it was a government published auction. So I want 100 megawatt of solar, and on the paper it was written, I want panels not from China. I want this kind of area. I want blah blah blah, and I want percentage, or I want whatever equity or whatever from local people. And this is how it was recorded. And this how we start to increase. And then I saw that it has been in some region of Spain, They did the same, but very few. And I saw it in a third country, but I don't remember. But at the end, it's only you do an auction, you put whatever you want. It has your criteria, so.
Okay, thank you. In Greetsy, actually, we are looking into innovations. You mentioned, Verena, you are not really focusing on startups, but scale-ups. So in Greetsy, for example, we are looking into TRL 6 level companies and beyond. So it's actually their option to move on. Okay.
Yes, I would really encourage them to reach out when they have a concrete project idea.
Several. I know of them. Maybe they are thinking about digesting the information, what was given and getting. You mentioned also agility. It means also probably that it's a much quicker form of funding, right, than traditional. So the process is much shorter. I think it was in your presentation, agility.
Maybe I think Benoit was the first to share their timeline, and I think it's more or less the same for every platform. So every project owner wants to have a campaign the day after tomorrow, but it's always depending on both sides. The due diligence takes time. It takes time to prepare the documents also for the regulator. And so I think you have to count at least 4 months until you can really bring a campaign to the platform.
Good. I think, Benoit, you mentioned, or probably all of you mentioned, that you would like to give a return back to the investors between 5 to 8, 9%, right? Would it be, for example, in some cases, of maybe some energy community projects also lower? Or, for example, in case of this acceptance or acceptability projects, do you have experience with maybe lower return? You would give back to, would you consider them, or?
Manuel or Verena, do you want to answer?
Maybe
Or
we
it's a
can all
tricky question.
We can all give our own answer to that, but you can start, Benoit.
Okay, with pleasure. Everything related to communities, it's a very nice topic. It's very tricky. It's complicated, and we have been studying thousands of files. I'm kidding, not thousands, of course, but with no success so far. Let's say that first, there are not that much projects. Second, it's legally speaking, it's complicated, and we were not able to find our place in this mix. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to finance any. So let's say sometimes we finance a project for a public city hall or whatever, but not in this term of energy community.
Thank you.
Well, from our side, we have tried many times to provide as low interest rate as possible. And a few years ago, when there was no inflation, we were able to do campaigns at around 3.5% for social projects. When the promoters were, for example, charities or foundations that they actually have a lot of assets And so even from the financial point of view, they are very solid, but they do live on budgets from social security and support. So for those entities, we have tried to provide as low loans as possible. Also, we consider ESG criteria in our risk model, and so we try as much as possible to provide a reduction on interest rate. That said, we do explain the promoters that if they're going to try and raise more than, in our case, 100,000 euros, they will probably need to offer a more competitive interest rate, or the community will not adhere to the project. But we do see that for amounts below 100,000, we do find that we have some investors who are more motivated by the impacts and the ambition or the innovation of the promoter than only profit, let's say.
Thank you. Karina, would you like to comment?
Yes, of course. I think there is at least two sides to this question. The first one is it always depends on the community, and especially in this case on the community that the project itself can mobilize. If you have a big municipality and you're sure that at least 30% of the people are willing to invest into the project because they find it so great and not because of the financial return, we can talk about that. But on the other hand, a qualified subordinated loan is always a risky investment, and there has to be some kind of compensation for the investors. Also, from the regulatory perspective, you cannot offer something to the people at an interest rate that is like a conventional bank account if they have the risk that they lose their whole capital. And so these are the two aspects that have to be really well thought through. And we want to make experiments on this also. This is, again, the social enterprise perspective. We're preparing a project in Tanzania, for example, for a very renowned micro leasing organization for women. They have had great social impact during the last 20 years, and it's all proven, and they are a model for the World Economic Forum, so really great organization. And they would offer 8%, which is a standard interest rate at the moment, I would say, in the current market context. But we would have a second type of investment at 3%, where the 5% difference do not go to the organization itself, but to a social hardship fund of the organization. So if one of the women customers is not able for some months to repay their leasing rates, they would have this hardship fund that would be doted by these 5% that the investors do not reclaim for themselves, which is very, very complex, also on the process side and everything. But we would really like to try out whether such a great organization finds enough capital, even for 3% of returns. Or also in our community that are really very engaged people, what is the percentage of investors that say, okay, I want the 8%? And what is the percentage of people who say, okay, 3% is enough for me, and I really want this hardship fund to become reality?
What a high level of customization. Incredible. Yeah. Okay, so so I encourage every participant to talk to you directly, because it seems that really very diverse, even if we're talking about just loans, but it seems that the financial engineering behind it is much more complex, or it can be much more complex. Yeah. Okay. So I think we are still in the afternoon coffee break mood for the participants. Not so many questions, but maybe they are waiting to contact you directly. I hope so. So we will put the recording and your contacts also online. I don't know, Stefan, do you have any other word, comment, or question to our
No,
speaker?
just a conclusion that thank you for the participation. As we already said, like Kristina said, this event were recorded and we're gonna put it online. We're gonna put it also on some social media and see you next week, or?
Thank you, Stefan. Okay, so we are, we are getting close to the end. I don't know, Manuel, Benoit, would you like to have a word to our participant? Maybe a closing word?
No,
What type
just
of projects you are seeking?
no, just
What kind
for
of
those
persons?
who usually when I have a meeting like this, I like to understand if people already invest personally in direct investing or crowdfunding. I see that today people are in a coffee break siesta afternoon, so I think I won't have much answer, but feel free to do it. But the only thing is just try by yourself, invest in GoParity, in Klimja, or other platform just to try. It's super interesting to learn, to choose your project and to see the return, which is even better, and to see where you contribute to something positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marco, you wanted to have a word? Or
Actually, thank you, Kristina, for the word. Actually, I was just waiting to my co-worker who left the office, but I found a very interesting intervention from Miss Verena Riedler from Klimja. In terms of energy communities connecting municipalities in projects concerning the wind farms. There's huge debates in Slovenia about wind farms. There are also very nice support schemes from the state for the wind farms establishment in Slovenia. But too often, or almost every time, we got in these debates about acceptability of that kind of projects from various stakeholders, NGOs, opposing that kind of installations in their environment. But I for sure know for at least 2 municipalities looking for this kind of opportunities. And if I may, I can forward your address, your contacts, and I'm sure they will get in touch with you on how to proceed with the urgent steps in order to gain enough acceptability between their citizens and investors, because the majority of the projects right now, they're all being invested by a certain company, and this leaves out the citizens participation, which is, in my opinion, one of the core elements for that kind of projects to succeed.
Yeah.
thank you, Marco.
Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you from my side to all of the speakers. Very good content, and I'm looking forward also to the recording to be able to share it between the stakeholders, our stakeholders who could not attend today's webinar. So thank you again.
Thank you, Marco. So Marco was from Xena, the coordinator of the Great Sea Project, an energy agency from Slovenia. But we also have another energy agency from the Great Go project. Stefan is from the Pomorje Energy Agency. And we also have MAE, the Mazovian Energy Agency online. So we have several energy agencies to spread the word. So this presentation will get to many, many people. Finally, I would give the floor to Manuel, to our last speaker, if you want to say a final word.
Sure. We're especially focusing on energy communities. We have the Portuguese legislation is very favorable to these, and we have actually trying now to do some pilots, actually funding or lending money to condominiums. So not only to provide the implementation of solar panels and batteries, which are very, let's say, they have a good payback in Portugal, in Spain as well, but also building renovation, which is something that is clearly a market gap, and that if banks cannot act on that area, we will try to move into that space and to provide. So to say that flexibility is always one of the great advantages of crowdlending, and we keep exploring that as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Manuel, that you mentioned condominiums. We haven't had in our in our practice, but it's good that you mentioned. Maybe we could look into that, because that's a big project also in Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, good. So if nobody else, then I thank you very much for your kind contribution, Manuel, Verena, and Benoit. And thank you, Stefan, for hosting. And thank you all participants for having attended today's webinar. And once again, I invite you to the 22nd October webinar. The link is here in the chat, and we'll send you also the invitation. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.